Hello and welcome to Awaz News. I'm Simona Cotoni and I'll be taking you through big news across Canada. Trudeau unveils new Russia sanctions amid growing NATO pressure over defense spending. Croatian MEP calls Trudeau a dictator for his handling of Freedom Convoy. Canada to hike oil, gas output 300,000 barrels a day to help displace Russian fuel. Toronto could decommission up to 5 temporary hotel shelter sites this year. Supreme Court of Canada hears appeal of sentence for Quebec City mosque shooter. 25-year-old found dead after a car went into lake in Mississauga. I have shot down Russian jets. Ukrainian fighter pilot breaks silence. Maple Leafs to unveil next-generation jerseys designed in collaboration with Justin Bieber. Bills stand to lose Bates after offensive lineman signs Bears offer sheet. Heavy rain and strong winds causes power outages in Toronto. So those were the headlines. Now let's jump right into the details. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau leveraged sanctions against dozens more Russian officials for their role in Moscow's invasion of Ukraine, but offered only vague promises in the face of growing pressure to increase Canadian defense spending. The Prime Minister announced a new sanctions against 160 members of Russian Federation Council, as well as a coming ban on the export of certain goods and technologies to Russia on Thursday, wrapping up a whirlwind trip to Brussels.
Support Ukraine against Russia, and that our resolve continues to stay strong for as long as it takes. Putin needs to know that there will be no erosion of our determination, and that the catastrophic costs of our sanctions will only grow over time as they punish him and his friends. Yesterday, I sat down with President von der Leyen of the European Commission, and President Metsola of the European Parliament, as well as Prime Minister Sanna Marin of Finland. Today, I got to sit down with fellow NATO leaders, fellow G7 leaders, and direct conversations with President Michel of the European Council, a direct conversation with Prime Minister of Japan, Fumio Kishida, and we got to hear twice from President Zelensky as he continues to demonstrate extraordinary leadership in the face of incredibly difficult situations. No countries. And we've pledged up to 3,400 troops to NATO's response force, including air, land, and maritime capabilities. Earlier this month, we renewed our commitment to Operation Reassurance, the Canadian Armed Forces support to NATO's assurance and deterrence measures in Central and Eastern Europe. In addition, since 2015, Canadian Armed Forces mission Operation Unifier has trained over 30,000 Ukrainian security forces, which means that as we see the Ukrainian military standing strong against the Russian invasion, the brave women and men of the Canadian Armed Forces can take pride in knowing they contributed directly to that. European security is important to Canadian security, so we are always grateful to the brave women and men of CAF who've deployed thousands of kilometers from home to help protect Euro-Atlantic security and stand up strongly for the values we cherish at home and around the world. The world has come together to impose unprecedented and punishing sanctions on Putin and his enablers. Today, Canada will be increasing pressure by sanctioning 160 members of the Russian Federation Council who facilitated and enabled this unjustified invasion, which brings the total of individuals connected to Putin who've been sanctioned by Canada 964. On imposera aussi de nouvelles mesures d'interdiction des exportations qui visent à affaiblir les capacités militaires russes dans des domaines comme l'électronique, l'informatique, les télécommunications, les capteurs et lasers, la navigation et l'avionique, la marine, l'aérospatiale et les transports. Putin has and is continuing to commit war crimes and create a devastating humanitarian crisis. We'll be announcing the allocation of $50 million from our humanitarian aid contribution the World Food Program, the World Health Organization, the UN Refugee Agency, the organization People in Need, and the Canadian Red Cross.
Mislav Kolasic, a member of European Parliament, called out Prime Minister Justin Trudeau yesterday for the erosion of civil liberties in Canada during the Freedom Convoy protests. A representative from Croatia said the world watched as police operating with jurisdiction under Trudeau's usage of Emergencies Act.
Human rights, democracy, and the rule of law, which is clearly the case with Mr. Trudeau. Then again, a prime minister who openly admires the Chinese basic dictatorship, who tramples on fundamental rights by persecuting and criminalizing his own citizens as terrorists just because they dared to stand up to his perverted concept of democracy, should not be allowed to speak in this House at all. Mr. Trudeau, you are a disgrace for any democracy. Please spare us your presence. Thank you.
Natural Resources Minister Jonathan Wilkinson says Canada can produce and export another 300,000 barrels of oil and natural gas per day as a part of global effort to displace Russian fossil fuels. Wilkinson is in Paris for an International Energy Agency meeting, which was focused heavily on helping Europe reduce its strong dependence on Russia for oil and gas. He says consultation with industry has identified that Canada can speed up production and also has pipeline capacity to make small increases to its oil and gas exports by the end of this year. City staff are recommending that Toronto decommission up to 5 temporary homeless shelters as a part of a wider plan to eventually close most of the sites set up in hotels and motels during the COVID-19 pandemic. The plan is being considered by the city's Economic and Community Development Committee during a meeting today. It will then go to the City Council as a whole next month. If approved, it will see the city decommission 2 sites with a combined 231 beds, the Better Living Center at 195 Princess Boulevard and Days Inn at 1684 Queen Street East upon the expiry of their leases this spring. The Supreme Court of Canada is considering whether the gunman who killed 6 men in a rampage at a Quebec City mosque in 2017 can be sentenced to more than 25 years in prison without the chance of parole. Alexander Bissonnette, who was originally sentenced to 40 years after pleading guilty to 6 counts of first-degree murder and 6 attempted murder, but Quebec's highest court reduced that to 25 years on appeal. Supreme Court Chief Justice Richard Wagner today questioned Quebec Crown prosecutor on whether the consecutive sentence he's seeking amount to request for a death sentence for Bissonnette, since the killer would be 77 when his prison term ended. The Court of Appeal agreed that consecutive sentences violated the charter, but decided the lower court judge erred in granting the killer a 40-year sentence, instead opted for a 25-year period. Peel police are investigating after a 25-year-old man was found dead inside a car that plunged into Lake Ontario in Mississauga early this morning. Peel police received a call around 3 a.m. about vehicle in the water near Lake Promenade and Lakeshore Road East. 2 men were inside the vehicle at the time, police said. One of the men managed to escape from the vehicle following the incident, but the police were unable to immediately determine the whereabouts of the other occupant. The roar of a fighter's jet engine forces Android into silence. As he waits for the aircraft to take off, the Ukrainian fighter pilot's flight mask covers half of his face, hiding his identity, but his squinting eyes still reveal a jovial smile. "Yes, that's ours," he says. Nowhere in the military matchup between Russia and Ukraine are the scales more tilted than the air, where Moscow has more advanced aircraft and in much larger numbers. But nearly 4 weeks into the war, Ukrainian Air Force is still flying and roaring like the jet that delayed Andrea's interview. The Toronto Maple Leafs debuted next-generation uniform yesterday that was created in collaboration with Canadian pop icon Justin Bieber. The reversible version featured a Drew House, Bieber's brand-inspired version with gold trim and elements of the Drew House motif inside the classic Leaf logo. The Buffalo Bills stand to lose Ryan Bates after the offensive lineman agreed to sign an offer sheet to play for Chicago Bears. A person with direct knowledge of the decision confirmed the Associated Press today. Once the offer sheet is filed with the NFL, the Bills will have 5 days to match the Bears' offer or lose Bates without compensation. A restricted free agent, Bates' rights were retained by the Bills last week when the teams tendered him 1 year, $2.43 million contract. Thousands of residents were without power for several hours in Toronto yesterday evening after heavy rain and strong winds knocked down the trees and hydro lines. A special weather statement was issued for Toronto and surrounding areas, with the Environment Canada warning of significant rainfall that could result in pooling on some roadways. The weather agency said the region could see up to 20 millimeters of rain between the late Wednesday afternoon and Thursday morning. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Simone Cutoni, and I'll see you tomorrow, same time, same channel. Adios.